Welcome, everybody. This is Event Marketing Redefined. I'm CEO of Rockway Exhibits and Events. My name is Matt Kleinrock. Thank you all for showing up. And today we're talking about is this. I believe that in trade shows and events, there is a huge lack of intent, strategy, and ROI, or as we would say, business outcomes, okay? In turn, I think what happens is these trade shows and events get viewed as like a necessary evil. They get viewed as something that just sort of happens, that it's just a part of what we do. Well, 20 to 40% of a marketing budget is event marketing spend. It's just a huge number to be thrown away to this concept of a necessary evil. So my question is, why are trade shows and events, and this is a generalization, but I think it's an accurate generalization, which is, why are they not treated like all other marketing, right? So why is it not treated strategically? Why is it not treated with measurement and engagement, ROI? Why are we not looking for set outcomes, right? The amount of people that I've spoken to in 12 years in trade shows, that when you ask them, what kind of return do they get? What kind of results are they achieving? The answer is typically like, not a whole lot, okay? So essentially, what we've kind of come up with, and my thoughts are simple: intent plus strategy equals ROI and business outcomes, okay? This is something we've thought a ton about, and essentially we've built a framework for trade shows, for brand activations, live events, user conferences. I mean, you name it, you can apply this. That's why it's a framework for brand experiences. So I'll give you a little bit of a background. In 2015, 2016, 2017, I personally just got tired of selling people trade show exhibits, like ones that I felt were very transactional. I think the positive side was that we got really good at delivering. We got really good at executing. We got really good at building trust. We got good at making sure that we put the bow on it, right? And that when the event marketer, event manager, whoever, trade show manager showed up, everything was good. Their mind was at ease, and the process getting there, the communication was good. But that's just like the basics, in my opinion, right? Like most companies should be doing that. And I think we were just missing something. And the more questions that we asked and the more conversations that we had, talking to people like, why are you exhibiting? What are you trying to achieve? The questions like, hey, your ideal customer is going to walk into your trade show booth. Let's say it's the whale, the big customer that you're at this trade show potentially for, and they walk in. What is their experience? We just get crickets. Sometimes people don't know. And typically we get people laugh and say, that's a great question. So it kind of put us on this path of saying, okay, we're not necessarily going to be able to dive into people's CRMs and become a marketing piece of them and get overly involved. Some people don't want to get too deep into it, but can we get you thinking differently? Can we help you create more focused intent, more focused strategy? And can we treat trade show and event marketing programs like other marketing and give it some direction and try to go and achieve some results? So with that said, let's start diving into the framework. Framework is 5 parts, okay? There is the why, there is the customer, there is the brand, there is the engagement, and there is the goals and outcomes, all right? So first one, the why. Let's talk about this. The why to me is intent, it's purpose, it's why are you doing this, right? So I mean, you know, whether you're exhibiting at a trade show or event, whether you're attending a trade show, whether you're sponsoring an event and creating activation, whether you are creating your own event, right? Any of those things, you have to be able to ask yourself why. And you need to be able to say, what is our intent? What is the purpose? Why are we doing this? So let's go with like a bad and a good example, okay? So a bad example would be, we'll say trade show, bad example. Why are you going to a trade show and exhibiting? We would say, because our competitors go. Look, a lot of people say that. There's a ton of it. We see it in God, I'd say 50 plus, maybe not that many, but a good chunk of people that we talk to is they go because their competitors go. So it's not the worst answer and it's workable. So let's take a bad example and think for ourselves. That really lacks a lot of intent, right? It lacks purpose. It's a reason, but it lacks intent and purpose. So here's what we do. We say, okay, obviously your customers are there. If essentially if your competitors are there, that means your customers are there. So, okay, so what's the plan now? What's the strategy? What's our intent? Let's create intent off of that. We need to differentiate. We need to stand out. So now we need to be asking ourselves questions like, are we bigger or smaller than our competitors? Are we more niche than our competitors? Those things need to dictate strategy when you go to these events and when you go to these trade shows. Essentially, you have to be able to position yourself in that scenario. Let's go to a good scenario. You ask somebody, say, hey, why are you exhibiting? What's your intent? What's your purpose? What is the whole point of this? And someone says, we're a software company. And essentially, we have a ton of success when we live demo and we sort of bridge an education gap. And also, we have a ton of customers at this trade show who give us live feedback and we have workshops with them. And it really helps us answer their questions, customer retention, and advance our software after the trade show. So really good why. It's very, I say this all the time. I don't think intentful is a word, but it has intent to it, right? So you can then start to plan around that intent. Let's use two little examples there. One would be, if that is your intent to go to this trade show, essentially, you could say, okay, we're going to set up some form of engagement for prospects who don't know us, right? For people that are in our sales funnel, whether we're moving them into the top, whether Pablo intentful, I don't know if it's a word, we'll figure it out in the chat. Moving people on the top of the funnel, or are we taking people that are in the funnel and moving them down, right? How do we move them down? What sort of engagement can we create to move them down? Okay. The next piece is the customer, right? Customer is the audience and the customer in which the brand experience is being created for. So who are they? We need to be very clear. And then the second piece is, why are they there? Why are they there? Not why are you there, right? Very different. Why are they there? So some questions, I think. Who is the customer? And that attendee, that audience, why are you trying to appeal to them? How, right? So it's almost like the other thing you ask yourself is, who's the benefiter of this event, this activation, or this sponsorship if we're getting away from trade shows, right? You could even go as far as you talk about buyer personas. People get very deep into buyer personas. I think that's great. Who are they as people? What are statistics on them in terms of, how do you organize these people into things that they like, things that they're looking for? You can get really smart in that sense. And if you can, I would encourage you to put that information together as you're building out this framework. Once you start establishing those customers, what is your value proposition to them? What problem do you solve for them, right? So, those are two similar but different things. The last thing, I think I mentioned this early in the beginning, is what does the ideal customer or attendee, what do they want in context to the event, right? In context to them being there. So say it's a trade show and it's in Long Beach, California, and they're in Long Beach, California for 3 days. Why are they coming to this conference, right? Is it purely educational? Are they doing it to see new ideas? Are they doing it to shop new vendors? Are they doing it to look at new products? Like, you have to get a really good understanding of why you believe that they're there. Now, you may not be able to get full understanding as to why somebody is there, but you got to take your best shot at it. And that is what I'm talking about deep diving into this customer. Because trade show booths, events, brand activations, conferences, summits, anything you're building in person, they need to be customer centric. I have been to far many events that are the opposite of customer centric. They don't hit the nail on the head. It's almost as if they didn't even consider who those people are and what it is they're looking for. You need to build customer centric brand experiences. I think that is vital. Some good examples here is that you can have multiples in audiences, right? I have a really good example, and I have a buddy of mine, Kurt, runs QPAC, And we were discussing some trade shows and we were going through this framework and having these conversations. And essentially, their customer at this trade show or people that they would be looking to talk to, appeal to, and work with. I mean, it's an array of 1099 reps, property managers, building owners, so that it's not just one specific, very niche individual that they can break down. It is multiple. They provide value to all three. And the concept is if there's enough of those people there and it's enough of a traffic driver, you have to build the experience around them. You have to have things for them to do. So you have to be able to make sure that when you're doing a dive into the customer, you're writing all this out. This is a part of what this framework does. It's a foundation. Before you get to all the fun, the ideas, the themes, the costumes, the giveaways, all the stuff that people want to talk about and throw ideas on the wall to see if it sticks, this to me is step one. You need a foundation to work from. It's like your North Star. You're like, okay, these are great ideas. Does it fit the customer? I don't know if it really does. Another example is like, we have a software client that's in hospitality. And when they go to their major trade show, they put a lot of eggs in this basket. When you're talking and breaking down the customer, it's essentially twofold, right? It's hospitality execs that are in their pipeline that they don't really know. And then the other one's current customers. It's like segmented. It's pretty much prospects and customers and the same individuals, but they have to be broken apart because they are really two different people in that moment and their needs are very different. The customer's need at the trade show is very different from their prospects' need at that trade show, right? So if you don't understand that, if you don't have that conversation, if you don't sit in a room and say to ourselves, hey, at this trade show, we got tons of current customers. And then you don't sit and say, hey, there's a lot of prospects that are in our funnel. Like you're never going to be able to build a proper strategy. You're just going to build a booth. And then when you get there, it's like everybody's going through the same process and everybody's trying to, how would I put it? Like you're running everybody through the same funnel and system in your trade show booth when really you need to have a plan for both so that you can accurately engage with them. That was better. Sorry. Next is we recently on our podcast, myself and one of our senior account execs, Molly Stahl, we ran through two brand activations. One was what American Express did, right? They sponsored the men's and women's US Tennis Open. They built out fan centers. They built out lounges. They did tennis court reservations. They fully understood when you go through this activation that we did, they fully understood that these fans, they are their customer, but it is the tennis community. They doubled down on the tennis community. Question here, Anita Daniel. Most of my sales team says they are attending trade shows to do relationship building with current customers. So they need to have face time with customers. How do you measure that? Wow, great question. The measurement part comes at the end, Anita, but we'll dive into it for you. So essentially, they're there to do relationship building, right? So what that would make me think is, what is the customer's needs, right? Because the customer's needs, what they need and what they perceive as valuable is what would build that relationship. So it's difficult to measure, things like if they take them out to dinner and have conversations, but are you able to say, okay, these current customers, are you able to measure, say, hey, we've been to 2-3 trade shows where they are there, we're building relationship. Are those accounts growing? That would be one of the first things I would track, right? Meaning, what do those accounts look like on a yearly basis? Are they growing? Are they increasing? Because if they're not, are you going to these trade shows and your salespeople there just to maintain that relationship? Because essentially they could probably maintain those sales and maintain what they're doing without the fact. Also, measuring relationship with current customers. I would say feedback would be another one, right? Like, are they giving you feedback? How interactive is this relationship building? Or is it just there kind of shaking hands and kissing babies? Because that's what I think is a whole nother thing. And this goes back to the engagement that you create for the customer at the trade show booth. What are the salespeople doing with them? Are they just standing, having conversations? Is it just good to just be face to face? I think it's about understanding those accounts. Are those accounts growing? Are you getting feedback from those accounts? I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I would be measuring, how to measure customer relationships that you currently have. Growth for sure, right? Feedback. I think if customers are giving you feedback in person, that is a form of relationship building, because a customer that doesn't care is not going to give you feedback, right? Those would be the two I would guess. I would say customer relationship building, what kind of measurable? I think it depends on a few other things, but I would go with those two. Great question, Amir. Thank you. So let's keep moving through. I want to go to the brand, right? Because the first three pieces of this framework is the why. We're talking intent, purpose, right? The customer, who are they? Trying to really deep dive so you can build customer-centric brand experiences. The third is your brand, you, right? And I think it's the most simple question. What makes you, you, right? As a company, what makes you, you? So some of the stuff that I would be asking, if you have the right people in the room, and again, when you're doing this framework, you need to get the right people. You either have executives or your marketing team, marketing and sales. That's a big piece. Marketing, don't exclude sales. Force them to come in. Trade shows and events and brand experiences are a function of both marketing and sales. Some questions that I would be asking as you deep dive brand, the third piece. What is your mission and purpose as a company? Get that in there, right? Any way you can tie mission and values and purpose of the company into these brand experiences, I think more the better. Ask yourself the simple question. Get a bunch of people in the room. Who are we as a company? Just start wording things up on a board. Just tank it out. What is your vibe? What is your feel? What is the energy of the company? I mean, I've worked with a lot of different companies. Every company has a different vibe. Every company has a different energy. Try to write out what that vibe and what that energy is. Brand package, colors, shapes, visuals, all those cool marketing things. You should have a brand package, include that in this. And then I think the next question, the real big one for me, what makes you different, right? We talked about positioning. You have to position yourself at these trade shows. You're there to compete. You're there to stand out. You are there to deliver a message. You're there to engage. So from a brand standpoint and a company, what makes you different? Talk about this. I can tell you this. We are in the process of doing this whole process ourselves because we are going to a trade show. And this one to me is fascinating. What makes you different? How do you position yourself, right? Because you have companies larger, you have companies smaller. How are you positioned in your market? How can you appeal? I think another point you can ask yourself about a brand nowadays is, do you have a specific point of view, right? Can you market this point of view almost more than you market the company per se? Market a point of view and come up, if you have a really, what you think is a unique point of view, put that in there, okay? The customer and the brand, as we're going through, I just want to connect these two things for you real quick. The second and third piece here, it's value proposition messaging. You've got to be able to go to these trade shows and message, with graphics and digital, got to be able to message people. What are you going to tell them? What's your one-liner? You got, 10 words, a sentence to tell people something at a trade show. Think of it as like a highway sign. You got one billboard, they're driving by it, right? What's your billboard message when you go to your trade shows? It should be value prop driven. It should make the customer ask themselves a question. It should intrigue them, okay? So I'll give you an example here as I go through this. And I think our company is a really good example. It's relevant to me because I just went through this. We are going to go exhibit at a trade show. That trade show has a lot of companies just like ourselves. And then it has a lot of people that are marketers, event marketers, trade show managers that are getting education, that are shopping new ideas, design, creativity, partners, the whole 9 yards. So we are going there and we are going through this entire process and then some on our own. So we talk about our brand real quick. We view ourselves as bold and modern with a strong point of view. We think areas of us that are unique and are truly us is our color blue, right? This color blue pops on a lot of things. We've always gotten compliments on it. It's very vibrant and we like that. The emblem, the logo is really an emblem. That was very purposeful. We wanted an emblem that we could use and stand by itself. We believe our name, Rockway, I mean, people mess it up a little bit. They say Rockaway, but we believe our name, right, makes us a little bit unique in our brand. But then the other two pieces that we came up with is essentially, we have a process here. I'm actually taking you through a piece of it, a process and a commitment to getting clients to think differently and go get real business results and do things more intentfully. There's that word again, Pablo, at their event marketing, trade show marketing. That we think that makes us a little bit different. The fact that we're talking about it, we're committed to it, we're living it and acting it. The second is this idea is that we consider ourselves kind of like a boutique trade show and event marketing company. I hear the word boutique, I think intentional design, right? That's what we do. We do intentional design, personalized service, right? Think like a boutique hotel, very intentional design, right? The layout of the hotel, the furniture, everything in it. Boutique hotels have personalized service. And then also this other piece for us is that we would consider ourselves small but mighty, right? We are big enough to handle a Fortune 500 company and handle a large account that does a large quantity of trade shows, brand activations, design exercises, branded environment builds out, and be a partner to them. And then we're also small enough for that personalized service. So when we went through this exercise, this is kind of the direction that we went. So I hope that little list I just ran you through helps you understand how you can map your brand and the way you should be thinking about it. Brenda Jackson, what can you use to draw people into your booth that is professional looking? So what can you use to draw people into your booth? This is a good one. We actually had a conversation with a client the other day. They use a very, very large video wall, and they have a product that is used in surgeries. And essentially they showcase that product on that video wall. And it is a very large video wall. Video walls are a very expensive way, in my opinion, of doing it, but a large video wall positioned properly in your booth with the right content though. Too many people, they just get a video wall, like, oh, we want a video wall. And then they don't put the right content on it. Okay. Content is important. What are you showcasing? How are you going to grab me? You know, for example, I see a lot of things now on like Instagram and Pinterest and TikTok and things where a lot of these LED companies, they're doing things in like Times Square and other places, and it like wraps around buildings and it has movement to it, right? So attention grabbing needs to be attention grabbing from a video wall standpoint, but then it also needs to be, it could be the content. Like, what are you showcasing that is going to grab a person's attention? I love that one. Another idea is, we'll get to this as we get to engagement, but it's like theming. When you theme your booth concept and you come up with a theme that you believe makes sense, I would say building custom structures that highlight your space or that people's eyes gravitate to, right? Maybe, you know, we've built an exhibit once that was like what looked like a home that was under construction. Okay. We built an exhibit for Post-it that it looked like scaffolding, right? So you're theming something. How can you not look like a conventional trade show booth and tie it into a theme? How can you draw people's eyes in? Pablo's talking about an idea here in the chat where you run podcasts in there, right? Yeah, I mean, you're just creating attention. You're getting invites out to people, inviting them on, you're interviewing them, you've got cameras. You got to look like something is going on, essentially. And this is a great question because it really runs me into my next piece. The fourth step in this framework is the experience and the engagement, okay? So the why, the customer, and the brand is really important because to me, based on those three things, once you've started to map all this out, you're starting to build this foundation, almost a board, like a big whiteboard with all this information. This is where you draw from because you've done the work. You've put the time in to understand what sort of intent you have. You've put the time in to understand the customer, why they're there, what value you provide for them. You took the time to understand what makes your brand different. Now you can draw from these things, and now we can start talking about fun stuff. Now we can start talking about engagement, right? So are you going to educate? Are you going to engage? Just like you could use gamification just to engage. The game could have nothing to do with anything other than a game and something that's virtual reality, something that's fun. Is your engagement going to be pure fun, right? Is the engagement sort of like appreciation, demos? Are you going to do presentations, podcasts, you know, your meeting space, raffles, giveaways? Do you have a physical experience for people to go through? Products, have you set something up where they physically use them and they're actually engaging and using those products, okay? So those are all things I'd be asking myself, by the way. We talk about this all the time. I say experience and engagement in this section. We ask, I'm an ideal customer. I walk into your trade show booth, I walk into your event, I walk into your activation. What happens now? So you're spending all this money, you're at the trade show, and it's like no one knows, like they're there because they think the customers are there, or they know the customers there. Well, what happens when they actually get there, right? Like what happens when you got to kiss the girl type thing? Like what happens when it's actually about that, like that person is there and they are like, okay, like I'm here. Who are you guys? Or I've heard of you before. I've seen your product. I've seen this. I was really interested in that. What happens if you are just banking on one of your salespeople to take this over and handle the conversation and bring you home? I think you're sadly mistaken. I think you have to get together with a team of people, hopefully a company like ourselves that can help and engage in this think tank, but also internally in your company. Who are the players that need to be in this conversation? And say, ideal customer walks in, the whale, the customers that we are looking for. What happens? What is the experience? What is the engagement we want to take them through so it matters? So their experience in your trade show booth matters. This is where the ideas come out. You know the why, you know the customer, you know the brand. So can you theme through these things? Are you capable of coming up with a theme? Engagement, you need to put engagement that does two things. Engagement that gets you results, or engagement that drives a tremendous amount of value to your customer, right? So I would be thinking about those two things. If you're going to come up with some form of engagement, these touch points, these interactions, think of them two ways, right? What is one that is like engagement that you know gets you results as a company, right? And I'm not talking about collecting data, right? I'm talking about whatever your goals are and the intent that you have at the show. How are you going to get things going your direction? How are they going to help your cause? And then the other is, how does this engagement bring value to your customer, whether value they're looking for or value that they may not know that they even need, but it's got to do one of those two things. Another concept, Pablo who's on here, is a huge proponent of this. Outside events. I mean, this guy just ran a karaoke party, an unofficial, official launch party at an event. And he invited people, just straight guerrilla marketing, walking up to people day one saying, hey, we're hosting a karaoke party. We're hosting a happy hour. Is there a space where you can run an outside event, get people there, and then put kind of like a fun appreciation type event together for them with your company's name behind it? Can you throw the best party at that event? All things to consider. So a few examples, right? Examples of engagement, examples of experience. I talked a little bit about my buddy Kurt with QPAC. They are a fan solution system company. When we were working with them, we were talking about this idea. I said, educate, right? He wants to educate people because their installation kits and their fan systems, the installation time is like a quarter or half of what their competitors are. So it saves time and money. People love to save time and money. That's their value prop. That's what they're going for. So they want to show people. We spoke with them and discussed about coming up with live fan installations. We're going to bring in a fan comes in a skid, packed up modularly, and we're going to do an assembly right then and there on the show floor in front of people and schedule them. That is an example, and we're going to live stream it. So that is an example of educate and show people something. Another good example of engagement. I mean, we just have this, I posted this the other day. We built out a tailgate at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game for our customer Publix. They run a party called the Ultimate Tailgate Party, and they do it every year for all the Buccaneer home games. And it's honestly fairly simple in terms of intent and why, but it has great purpose to a great cause, right? Like essentially, the Bucs are a huge part of the Tampa Bay community. Publix is a big part of the Tampa Bay community. High percentage of the Bucs fans are Publix customers. Publix loves football. These people love football. It's game day. And when you go down to that parking lot, I forget which actual lot, they throw a 4,000 square foot party. I mean, there is games, food, music. They roll in a industrial truck kitchen with an LED screen. We turf the parking lot area. I mean, it goes all out, but it's simple. These people want to have fun. We're not trying to educate them at a tailgate. We're not trying to sell them anything via Publix. No, it's an appreciation, fun. They get what they're trying to accomplish there. So they're not trying to do things. If they were trying to educate people on like a certain program of theirs or something, we'd be like, whoa, time out. Like, that's not really what these people, that's not what they're there for. The public's not trying to do any of that. They have good intent. They're like, these people are there for a football game. We love football. It's our community. We're going to throw you a party. Enjoy it. At lot 14. Thank you, Molly. Lot 14. So I love the engagement there. Like, we have a blow up quarterback throw thing there. Like, people love it. We have trash can beer pong where we have garbage cans and people throw the football toss, and it's a blast, but it has the right intent. Okay. The other one is, this was not an exhibit that we did, but I saw a booth down at the KBIS at the Kitchen and Bath Show. And it's a company that makes high-end appliances. I love this. They built out like this beautiful kind of Napa Valley kitchen that was like kind of near the aisle, and they were taking guests through a unique experience. It was engagement and experience, right? So they're taking, whether these people were scheduled, registered to do this, I do not know, but they essentially had this beautiful island kitchen. I mean, it looked like a beautiful kitchen. And they were doing some wine tasting, some food tasting, and somebody in there had a headset on, and they were taking them through all of it, an experience, maybe talking about the appliances, maybe talking to them about issues they have with older appliances. I'm really unsure. I wasn't a guest, but I stood outside and watched it. Back to the question earlier about what draws you into a trade show booth, seeing this beautiful kitchen with people sitting around it in an intimate setting, tasting wine and somebody presenting with a headset, and just look awesome, and then when you tie the knot together of what the company does, it really makes a lot of sense. So that is where, when you know your why, your intent as to why you're at that show, and you know the customer and why they're there, who they are, and you know your brand, you can then come up with ideas that hit, not ideas that miss, because you're working from a foundation. All right. Let's go last piece here. So the last piece is goals and objectives. Okay. I really believe with goals and objectives, it's the fifth piece that we put in here, but you can start mapping them any point in time in this process. If you like, goals and objectives are things you want to achieve. The goals are things you want to achieve. The objectives are things that you're doing to achieve them. So if you say, hey, one of our goals is to do 50 demos of this specific software or product. Okay, what's an objective for that? Meaning, what kind of outreach are you going to do? How many weeks in advance are you going to try to set meetings? You need to set objectives so you reach that goal. You don't just say, I want to do 50 demos, show up to a trade show, because you're probably not going to do 50 demos. What objectives are you going to put in place to make sure that you reach that goal? And this goes back to, let's stay here first. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's stay here first. What do you want to achieve, right? Goes back to intent. Sometimes that's why I said this can be a part of it. Intent is, what do you want to achieve? You're going to a trade show, you're shelling out $400,000, whatever it may be. What do you want to achieve? Why are you there? You have to script that into this goal section. What are these goals? So I want to achieve this, and then these are my goals. You don't always need pure ROI and metrics and scanning a gazillion badges. Like, you need to look for positive business outcomes. What are some positive business outcomes? What are some results? What could be happening at this trade show or after this trade show that would deem it worth your while? Okay. Like, I'll give you a good example. People, in my opinion, don't consider the sales funnel enough when they go to trade shows. You have top funnel, you got mid, lower, and then you got the bottom where people come out and we sell to them. So you got to understand a trade show. Are you adding people into your funnel, meaning they're brand new? Or are they mid, lower, meaning they're actual prospects, people you've had touch points with, people that are in your sales funnel already? How do you move them through? Because I think it's very different how you get someone into your funnel versus how do you move them through your funnel. And then, of course, how do you convert them? Can you track that somehow, right? Can you track their progress? Are trade shows accelerating that mid to the lower part of your funnel? Is it accelerating? Typically what people track is how many new opportunities are we gaining, which is great. Do you have goals for your customers while you're there? I talked a little bit about this earlier. People don't talk enough about their customers at trade shows. It's more about going to find customers. But if your customers are there, you need to have goals with your face-to-face time, right? I think it's feedback. It's something that I love feedback. I think if your customers are giving you feedback, it means they care, they're listening, they're invested in your partnership with you. So can you set goals for what you're trying to achieve with your customers? So let's go into some examples of kind of like what you can track or, things in the micro. You can track meetings. Everybody has meetings at these, trade shows and events. And well, you should be grading the meetings. Not every meeting is good. Not every meeting is great. So is it that meeting? I would have a sheet that says like, okay, that meeting is a brand new prospect, or it's a person that's already in our funnel. And then I would grade it A, B, C, and D. How many B or better meetings are you having? Because if you just go and say, yeah, we had 150 meetings, I mean, it could be 130 crap meetings. But what are the 20 that matter? And then that's a metric that you want to track. Say, hey, we had 150 meetings, 30 of them were good. Well, the next time we go to this show, we want 50 to be good. Well, how do we make 50 good? So it's not like perfect ROI. It's not nitty gritty ROI, but it's essentially saying, if you can get these meetings to be better, you can now think about it every time. Well, hey, maybe we need to do a little bit better targeting in our emails prior. Maybe we need to get lamped up with sales better prior to set these meetings, to reach out to these prospects, people they've had touch points with, so that you're setting better meetings. So when you have 150, 100 of them are good meetings. And if you can watch that metric get better, it's hard to argue that essentially you would be having more success with new prospects or customers. Demos, kind of the same way. People like to track demos. How many did you do? How many people did you show the product to? Okay, well, what happens after that? You need some way of tracking what happens with those demonstrations. Attendance of presentation. You do presentations. I love presentations in trade shows. I think goes back to, the grabbing the attention is essentially saying, okay, if we can do really good presentations, can we draw people in? So presentations, like I think if you're doing good presentations and solid ones, you could garner attention that way. If you build up a little stage, if you can get some audience in there, you're obviously recruiting people on the show floor to come in. You're trying to market it ahead of time to get people to go. Do you have the right speakers? I think presentation attendance is a good one. Deals that are in your pipeline. So you already have deals that are in your pipeline for people attending these shows. What happens with them? Are they closing faster? Are they accelerating? What stages are they hitting? Can you track stage growth on X amount of these prospects or people that you're working with that are in your pipeline, right? Are you moving people through the funnel? Next one would be something like, what's happening 3 or 4 months down the road? What do those sales look like? Either ones generated from trade show or people that you were actually working with that essentially you are moving through. So are you closing people faster because of this face-to-face, because of these interactions, because of being at trade show? I think you can find patterns there. Jerry Mack asks, do you have a template for grading the prospects? Love JMac. He didn't put love JMac. I'm just kidding. Do I have a template? No, I don't. It's a good question. I would say, I guess I would be creating one, Jerry. Like if, we're going to a trade show in April and essentially we will be doing this to a degree, meaning I don't care that we've scanned 300 badges, right? I'm going to care about certain things that we are going to do with our engagement. We're going to have certain set engagements and we're going to do certain things. How many people did we get to go through those engagements? Like that's what we'll be looking for. So in grading those prospects, I would say with conversation, yes, we will come up with grading systems. And I think it's going to be based on, for us, and I can only reference us here, is how good of a fit are we, right? We're not a perfect fit for everybody. We're just not. I mean, we're comfortable telling people that as well, based on, what it is that they're looking for us to do. And we're happy to point people in the right direction. So the grading would probably have a multitude of things like that make sense for us. Because I think ultimately, Jerry, when you're walking away from a trade show and you've met people and talked to people and engaged with them, You want to know what you've really walked away with. Like, what are the 5, 10, 15, I know everybody's a different scale, 100 opportunities that are really worth the post-show follow-up, meaning who's calling, what kind of engagement follows. You want more personalized engagement to the good grades, maybe a little less personalized, maybe one that weren't grades, but you're not sure how good of a customer that they could be. But I would encourage people to create it, even if it's as simple as you got a bunch of sales reps in your booth and you're doing demonstration. Oh, I'll give you a great example, Barry. I was down at PGA show years ago, and a friend of mine worked for a company. They sell simulator software, right, for golf simulators. So I went over and said hello to her. She introduced me to her contact that runs the trade show booth. They had like 10 simulators going, sales reps all over. They were as busy as could be. And I got in this conversation with the guy who was running the trade show booth. And I was like, what's your biggest problem here? Like, what's the biggest thing that you're struggling with? And he essentially said tracking leads, because everybody's so busy and they're having these conversations. And I was like, well, what are you doing to try to solve that? And he's like, well, we're scanning badges, but really then the data's all messed up and we have big chunks of data. And I said, hey man, why don't you just get somebody on your staff, grab an iPad, pull up Excel or some kind of document, and their job is solely somebody from your staff, because you got a lot of staff here, run around the salespeople and say, hey, what was the last conversation? Who was the contact? Was it a one, was A, B, C, or D? Just give me, even if it's off the cuff, give me A, B, C, or D. Salespeople can typically give you a B on something that's halfway decent or not, and somebody that you would want to follow up with. So even something as elementary as that would be better than just scanning badges and then sorting through it afterwards, because you got salespeople with sticky notes and like, oh yeah, I remember Joanne. Oh yeah, we had a great, oh wait, no, that's the wrong person. Like, you need something. And honestly, even if it's elementary, like I just said, in this case, run around, get someone to go to the salespeople consistently. Hey, what were your last 2 conversations? Who were they? Name. We got a business card. Great. What's the lead grade? Are they on your badge scanner? And just get some organization going. I think that's really important. Somebody just said Exhibitor Live, right? Love that show. Thinks that's where I initially, yes, we are exhibiting at Exhibitor Live in April. It's in Louisville this year, and we will be there. So let's run through this real quick. I just want to do one last as I wrap this up. Any questions? I would love to take any more questions. Anything specific to this framework? Anything that you'd like to know about your own company, or maybe problems that you're having, or something that you're looking to solve that you maybe want to kick around here real quick? I'm sure we have some really smart people in the chat that can help, and I can help out as well. But the framework, 5 steps, right? The why. You are essentially saying, what is your intent? What is your purpose? You need to know why you're going to do things. Why are you going to activate? Why are you creating an event? All right. Get that down. Put it on a piece of paper, whiteboard it, think tank. It is the absolute foundation to all of this. And it allows you to connect the dots for your customers at these actual activations. Because typically what your intent is usually revolves around your audience or your customer. Okay. The second, the customer, right? This is deep diving. You got to know your customer, know why they're there, know what they're looking for, what don't they know that they need to know. I think there is a lot to be said for this. We just went through it. If anybody has any suggestions actually for us that what our customers are looking for at Exhibitor Live, I would love to hear what those are. So we just went through this and try and figure it out. And, you do need to talk to customers. I would encourage that. Go out and ask these questions. Go see if you can figure it out. But the more you can understand your customer and why they are there, the more you can build customer-centric activations, experiences, trade show booths. You want them to be customer-centric, okay? Third is the brand. That's all about you, your company. And I ask this all the time, what makes you you, right? Who are you? What makes you different? How are you going to position yourself in a room full of sharks, right? Like, you're going to trade shows. Most of your competitors are there. It's very rare you find some trade show that no one knows about, but you're the only shark in the room. So essentially, how can you position yourself at the trade show? What makes you different? How do you stand out? And start to really document that and come up with a way of understanding it, because really those 3 things to me are the foundation for how you show up, or the foundation for how you message to your customers. It's the foundation for how you theme things. It's the foundation for these cool, funky, out of the box ideas that you see on LinkedIn. And people are like, oh, wow. Oh, I don't know how they came to that. Well, some of these larger companies has big experiential teams, right? They have people actually, this is what they do for a living. So if you don't have that luxury, you can use this framework with your marketing team, with your sales team, with your design agency, whoever it is involved in these processes. Fourth, the experience and engagement. Again, this is the fun part. This is where people go to too fast. They're like, oh, we are sponsoring X and we're going to put an activation on it. Oh, I want to do this and I want a grass wall with neon letters. And people just go nuts. And it's like, well, time out, like pause. Why? Why is that cool? People come to us with ideas all the time. We love ideas. We never discard them, but you have this idea on the basis of what, right? Where is that idea derived from? And we're going to challenge it. Why would this work? Why do you think that this will create engagement, essentially? Okay. So that's what it comes down to, experience and engagement. And then last one is your goals. You need to have goals. What do you want to achieve? What are positive business outcomes? Fight for this. This is something I cannot stress enough. Doesn't need to be perfect. You don't need softwares, although there are plenty of softwares that you can utilize. But if you are an event marketing manager, you can do this yourself. Start small. What are positive outcomes, positive signals? What are results that would happen for the business that are good based on your event marketing, right? Write down 5 ones that if these happen, these would be good. Then go find a way, some way of tracking it, some way of understanding it, because then you can tinker. Then you can make changes, not tracking or looking or trying to achieve anything specific, right? It's like aim small, miss small. Okay. I think essentially that should be a focus for a lot of people. Again, the why, the customer, the brand, the engagement, and the goals. That's a wrap for today. That's Event Marketing Redefined. That is our 5-part experience, brand building framework. And I appreciate everybody's time. I love having everybody on the show. We'll be live in 2 weeks, October 12th. Okay. And in the meantime, in the interim, every single week on Wednesday, we will have a new show that gets released and launched on our podcast. So if you're looking for more content, if you like what we're talking about, our podcast, Event Marketing Redefined, is on Apple and Spotify. New show comes out every single week. And then you can follow my LinkedIn content, Matt Kleinrock on LinkedIn, and a lot of good stuff on there, videos, thoughts, just my brain spew. So I appreciate everybody. Have an awesome rest of the day. Anybody in Florida, stay safe with this hurricane, okay? Thank you.